Welcome to another bonus edition of Upon Further Review.
Upon further review,
And in this edition, we'll be talking about the Seattle Seahawks versus the Carolina Panthers. And you can catch this Week 8 matchup on October 26th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And that'll be aired on your local CBS affiliates. So the Seattle Seahawks go into this game with a record of 3-3, and the Panthers are 3-1. So the Seahawks started off with an impressive victory in Week 1 as they beat the Packers by 20 points. But then in Week 2, they went to San Diego and they lost to the Chargers. Then they hosted the Broncos in the rematch of Super Bowl 48, and they beat the Broncos in overtime by a touchdown. Then they went to D.C. and they beat Washington on Monday Night Football. And they were 3-1 at that point, but then they lost the last two games as they have a slide. They first hosted the Cowboys, and they lost a tough one by just a touchdown to Dallas in Seattle. It's a rare loss for the Seattle Seahawks at home. And then they went to St. Louis, and they lost a game that I'll tell you, if you were a Seahawks fan, that was a heartbreaking loss. Is a couple of pivotal moments in that game. That 90-yard punt return really hurt them. And then when they couldn't convert that 2-point conversion, if they would have converted there, this game would have went to overtime, and who knows what would have happened then. And then also that fumble at the end, which could have went either way. It depended on who you were rooting for. If you were rooting for St. Louis, then you were saying, yep, it was the right call. And if you were rooting for the Seahawks, then you thought it was a travesty. So, I mean, it was one of those calls. It could have went either way. It was a real close call. And really, I think if Seattle, you can't really complain too much about that because you all know that you got that call back, against Green Bay way back when. But such is life in football. And the thing about it is if a call goes against you, you know that you're going to get some calls going your way throughout the season. They go back and forth, and it all kind of seems to even out. And you just can't let things fall into the hands of the officials. If it comes down to a call by the officials, then you've already lost. That's not the way you want to win games, especially against the Rams. They should have had that one well in hand. Of course, the Rams played them pretty tight, last year as well. And they're in division. When it's, division rivals, anything can happen. But this week they're going to Carolina, and the Panthers started off strong. They start off 2-0. First they went to Tampa and they beat the Buccaneers, and then they hosted the Detroit Lions, and they won an impressive victory over Detroit. It was in Carolina. Then they lost a disappointing one to the Steelers. It was in Carolina. Pittsburgh came in and they beat up on them. They ran all over them. And that really, set a tone for the next week as now they went to Baltimore and they got wiped out by the Ravens. So they lost 2 in a row. That set them at 500. They then got a big win against the Bears there in Carolina. And then they had a couple of tough road games as they went, to Cincinnati, and they played to a tie. It's actually impressive that they could go into Cincinnati and force a tie. Cincinnati does not lose at home, and they didn't lose that game. It went to a tie, so almost you got to consider that kind of a win for the Panthers. And then they went to Green Bay last week, and the Packers just beat them up. They destroyed them even worse than the scoreboard indicated. So the Panthers have been struggling, and their defense has really been the huge question mark. I mean, we all know that the running game of the Panthers has been suspect over the years, but their defense has always been their strength, and their defense has been struggling this year. And let's look at the defensive numbers and the offensive numbers between these two teams. First, we'll look at the passing proficiency. And when it comes to offensive passing yards per game, the Seattle Seahawks are 29th in the NFL. So they do not get things going through the air. At least they've been struggling to do that thus far, even though last week Russell Wilson had that huge game. So we'll see going forward if they can raise that number up. They should, but as of now, that's where it is. And the Carolina Panthers, they are actually 12th in passing yards per game. So Cam Newton is having a great year when it comes to passing the ball. He's getting, his numbers up there. So he's definitely improved in the passing game. He just doesn't have people around him is what's the problem. And we look at the passing defense of each team. The Seahawks are 16th in passing yards allowed, and the Panthers are 22nd. So surprisingly, both these teams are in the bottom half of the league when it comes to passing defense. That's something that you did not expect going into the season, when these two teams have been two of the top defenses year in, year out, at least for the last few years anyway, last 3-4 years. And this year, though, they are struggling. They're definitely, feeling the loss of some talent, and there's a lot of injuries as well. We'll get into that in a moment. But as it is, you got to give the edge in the passing game to the Panthers. That's just how it is. That's just the numbers. And then we look at the running offenses of each team. The Carolina Panthers are 27th in running the ball, and the Seahawks are number 2. So the Seahawks are one of the best teams when it comes to running the ball with yards per game. Beast mode, Marshawn Lynch is having another great season, probably one of his better seasons. They're number 2. The Panthers, on the other hand, they just cannot run the ball to save their lives. Of course, a lot of that has to do with the injuries, and that's why they're 27th in rushing the ball on offense. And we look at the rushing defense. This is where the Seahawks' strength lies on their D, is their running defense. They are 6th in the NFL when it comes to rushing yards allowed per game. Carolina, though, is just 26th. So the Panthers struggle to stop the run, and the Seahawks, they can run the ball, and they do not let up running yards. Their secondary is coming up and loading up the box and stopping the run. And the advantage on the ground clearly is in favor of the Seahawks, without a doubt. Then we look at points for and against. And when it comes to scoring, the Seahawks are 8th in the NFL in points per game. The Panthers are 16th. And when it comes to points against, the Seahawks are 19th in points allowed. The Panthers are 29th. So the Seahawks are putting up a lot of points on the board, which is, a welcome, thing for Seahawks fans. But they are not stopping teams from scoring, as was, their MO last year. They were one of the toughest defenses, and they are definitely seeing a drop-off. And a lot of that has to do with the players leaving through free agency, not big name guys, but guys that were, definitely important parts. They were playing important roles on that defense, and now they're not there. And now you can see that the Seahawks are definitely missing those players, as there were some key role players. And the Panthers, on the other hand, they're 29th in points allowed, and it's just a huge question mark, like what is going on there. Of course, injuries, and also, not having Greg Hardy. You can see that their defense is missing the players that are not on the field. And again, the advantage goes to Seattle there. So overall, things favor the Seahawks. Carolina does have a slight advantage when it comes to the passing game, but we'll see how that exactly plays out. I think that's a little bit of, it's kind of misleading. With Seattle. I think that they have a better, passing defense than the numbers indicate. And if Russell Wilson, we've seen how he did against the Rams. They did lose that game, but he put up his best numbers of the year so far in that loss. And it seems like without Percy Harvin, maybe things will start to run a little smoother. It seems like maybe they had some pressure on them to get Percy the ball. Percy is a big playmaker, but when you're trying to force the ball to any player, regardless of how good he is, you're going to struggle, because that's not how you play football. You don't just put the ball in the hands of one guy and then hope to win. You got to just, play the game as it plays out. Whoever's open is open. It doesn't matter what their name is. It doesn't matter what their contract is. And by having Percy, by moving him, that makes it a lot, more smooth and cohesive, and makes it to where they don't have to have the pressure to, get the ball to a specific player because he has a big contract, So I think that they actually should see some improvement in their passing game. I mean, the passing game has nowhere to go but up, right? So, and the way the Panthers defense has been playing, they can't stop anybody, and it's really, like one of those things where you shake your head, you go, that song, that old song where things that make you go, like Carolina's defense makes you go, like what is going on? But you know what it is they've got so many injuries. Both these teams are really banged up, and that's the thing that people are overlooking a lot. But you see, there's so many injuries for both of these teams. Was it 2, 4, 6, 8 players for Panthers are not playing in this game? And then with the Seahawks, I think it's at 7 or 8 players as well. 7 players that aren't playing. So, there's a lot of injuries. Not necessarily big, huge key names, but the Panthers got 2 running backs injured. Both Whitaker and Williams are injured. They've got a couple of guards injured, a receiver, a corner, and a linebacker. Blackburn and Ben McCree, both injured. So, and then over with the Seahawks, they've got some really big injuries like Jordan Hill, Byron Maxwell, Max Unger, Bobby Wagner. Those are all key players. Zachary Miller, those are some big, players that they're missing. So we'll see how that all, works out and everything. But I think the Seahawks, though, I'm taking Seattle in this game. The numbers bear it out that they should win this one, especially the way Carolina has been playing. And I really do not see the Seahawks losing 3 games in a row. They lost those 2 in a row, but are they going to lose a 3rd game in a row? I know it's in Carolina, but I still think Seattle wins this one. I think that they should be able to, run the ball over the Panthers. I think Russell Wilson should have a big game. This one could be very interesting because we're going to see 2 of the top young quarterbacks in the league that are coming up. Cam Newton and Russell Wilson. They both are very capable of putting up big numbers, and it should be an exciting game. But the Seahawks defense, even though they've fallen off somewhat when it comes to pass defense, their running defense is solid. Carolina has no running game, so it's going to be all on Cam Newton. He's going to have to do everything, and when they're able to just game plan strictly for Cam, it's going to be a long day for Carolina, and Seahawks are going to win this one. It could be a close game. It'll probably come down to, between 3 to 7 points, something like that. Wouldn't be surprised to see it come down to the end. But either way, I think the Seahawks take this one. They get back in the win column. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Very interested to read your thoughts and opinions. And if you enjoyed the show, make sure to hit the like button. How else would we know you enjoy the show if you don't hit the like button? And then, if you do like the show and you want more of this content, make sure to subscribe as we bring you upon further reviews and recaps of each and every single game all season long and through the playoffs all the way through the Super Bowl. We're also covering the MLB playoffs as well. We've been covering it since the wild card. It's now in the World Series. It's down to just a few games. It's down to just 2 teams. And we'll see how it all plays out this weekend. It could be over this weekend. I don't think it will be, but you never know. We'll see what happens in the next couple days. But we're also covering some college football as well. We haven't been able to do that as much lately because of the baseball playoffs, but we will get back to covering more college football soon, and we will be covering the college football playoffs coming up later on. So keep an eye out for that, and also keep an eye out for our weekly show, The Wedge, where we do our quick picks, our fantasy football, fantasy fortunes. And we also do the weekly rewind, where we go over the week that was in pro football. We do the upon further review for the Thursday night game on that show as well. So keep an eye out for that. We try to get that up there like Tuesday, Wednesday. This week we got up there kind of late. It wasn't up until late Thursday, but we always make sure to get it up there, before the game. So keep an eye out for that. And thank you very much for listening. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and have a great weekend and enjoy all of the sports.